Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. So today I am going to do a painting of an owl. I found this reference picture on Unsplash, and which is a royalty-free reference site, and I just love the colours and I love the eyes, so I thought I've got to paint this little bird. So I'm going to start. He's basically just an oval, an oval shape on an angle. So I'll just start by adding just the basic shape in. Just get his basic shape in. I can adjust the size as I go. So his basic shape is, he's got big legs, but I won't worry about the legs just yet. So that's his head. Actually, if I measure his head, so his head, 1, 2, so 2 times his head is the length of his body. So I've got his body about the right thing. And then his tail is also the length of his head. So I just mark that, and that just gives you the proportions a bit easier. I can make him a little bit taller, a little bit sort of fuller looking, and I can erase as I need to. So that's his ear. He's got one leg. Now his leg is also the same length as his head. So I just measure that like that, and I've got the length of his leg. So I measure everything, every part against another part. So the head, and same with humans, the proportions are the same. You measure the head, I think it's 3 times the head is the torso, 5 times is the leg, I think. But yeah, I usually measure like on the go, because working in the wild too, like I like to work a lot from nature. Like I'll go to zoos, or I'll sit out I'll go down the paddock and draw whatever's out there. And I use my pencil to get measurements of things. Like you see artists doing that, and they get their measurements from doing that. So that I find helps a lot. So he's got 4 toes that I can see. He's got 2 facing forward and 1 facing back, 2 facing back. So pop those on like that. Pop those in there. There we go. And that's the other leg. You can't actually see the foot on that one. He's sort of facing a little bit towards us. So pop those on there like that. Now his eyes. So this is the part, getting their inner details correct, their features correct. So his basic, I'm just going to put the basics in. So he's got his the rings around his eyes are quite large. They come almost to the bottom of his face. I'll have to widen his face a little, which is easy enough to do. I can just adjust and readjust as I go. His beak starts about there, about sort of halfway up his eyes, or the round part around his eyes. And then it comes down like that. So pop his eyes in there like that. Okay. And as I add, so I've got his head, and his body is 2 times 1, 2. So I've got that right. I've got to thicken out his body a little bit. I've got him a bit thin looking. So I'll just take it out a little bit more like that, because he's quite a chubby, pudgy little owl. His wings down here, and it comes down his back. Hello, Sleestack. Oh, so fast. Yeah. Lots and lots and lots of years of practice, mate. How are you? Yeah, lots of years of practice. And you know what makes you fast? Drawing from white, like going out and just drawing animals, because they move so quick. You got to be fast. Like if I was going to the zoo or whatever, the animals they don't stop and stand still for you. So I've learnt to be very fast. But it helps, and it's also a hindrance sometimes, because I know I've got friends who take days and days and days to do a painting, and I take 2 hours is big for me. I'm so used to working fast that it's just, I can't do anything else now. I can't slow down. So I'm going to draw his pupils in. So how have you been anyway? How are you? Pop his eyes there. But yeah, I highly recommend working from the wild because it really does get you see a lot more, a lot faster. I mean, I enjoy working from photographs. Working and watching. Cool. Awesome. Glad to hear it. So what are you working on? What are you doing? It's Sunday morning here, so it's just gone 8 o'clock in the morning. So I'll just erase. Oh shit! I forgot to press my thingy record button on my other doodah, but that's okay. Because I usually double record. I film it and record it. So I've got to come down here. That just reminded me. So he's got his butt. He's sort of facing a little bit away from us. His tail comes down there. He's got a pattern around here. So I'll just mark in where his feather patterns go. And he's got lots of stripes, lots and lots of stripes. And he's got his wing feathers, his flight feathers are down here. So pop those in. I won't do these like every single feather. I'll just suggest the feathers because he's got lots and lots and lots. And if I paint every single feather, I'll go crazy. And I'll probably make you all go crazy too. Okay, come around here. All right, so he's standing on a tree stump, so I should probably do his tree stump, shouldn't I? Let's do his tree stump. Let's do his tree stump. I tend to do things with the standing on tree stumps and things, and fence posts and... All right. And wood is not an easy... I find drawing the stump the hardest part of the whole picture. Definitely find it the hardest part of the whole picture. So he's now got... So he's got darker patterns around the edges. So what I'm going to do now, I've done the basic outline. I'm going to find my eraser that I had 2 seconds ago. There it is over there. Got it. Printing out shipping labels for UPS. It's 318 here in... Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Cool. So now I'm just going to erase a little bit. Like that. Just to soften up the outline so they're not quite so intense when I go to painting. And I get my paints happening. And where did I put my cloth? Oh my God, there it is. You think I'd know where I put everything, but no, it's only been in the same spot for 10 years. And I still don't know where I stick stuff. I still lose my pencil when I put it down. Okay, so I'm using my Senneliers and my Schminkies today. And I am going to go straight in with gold ochre. So I'll get that up in my palette. It's a beautiful golden colour. Oh, it's a bit muddy actually. My brush has got a bit of colour on it, so better get rid of that. Make sure my paint's clean before I go on to him. There we go. That's a bit better. And I'm going to just pop that around his eye. That lovely gold colour. Just very carefully. And I'm using my Silver Black Velvet size 8 brush. It's a good sort of standard size. I can do the whole picture with it. It's not a very big picture. I've got a small book. These will be for like, I'll be selling these locally. Just as little gift card kind of size cards. They're a little bit bigger than a gift card. They're the size of my hand. So, but that's what these will be for. So I'm going to leave that alone for a second and I'm going to go... He's actually got that golden colour over a lot of his body, but I'm going to use transparent sienna for the rest of him. Oh, that's not transparent sienna, that's mud. I don't know what that is. Anyway, we're going to go away from that. Clean my brush again. Yeah, it's just gone 8 AM here. What the heavens to Betsy colour did I use then? That one. I need to go. I went for the wrong palette. That gold is the one I want. Or it's a ready gold. So I am going to let that set for a minute. Leave a little gap around the iris of his eye because there's going to be a black line around that. And I can pop. I'm going to work in stages so that each part dries a little bit before I go on to the next. Down and around there. That actually comes down there too. And you can see me looking over there occasionally. I've got my big screen over there, so I can see my picture in real time. And it's like looking at, like, to check the proportions and to check the colours and everything. It's like if you hold a mirror up to your artwork, it makes it easier to see any mistakes. And looking at my big screen does the same thing. I can see any errors that need adjusting. It just helps to give you a different perspective. Excuse me, I've got a tickle in my throat, but I have a drink of my coffee, eh? Yum. Okay. Sorry, Bear Bear. My little dog wants to jump. He doesn't like it when I cough. Oh, Bear Bear, you come up and say hello? Come and say hello to Slee Stack. Come here. This is Bear Bear. Ooh, this is my little Jack Russell. Say hello, Bear. Hello. This is Bear. I coughed. He got worried, as he always does. Don't you, Bear Bear? He's a good cuddler. Don't you, Bear Bear? Yes. You're a smush. Now you can jump down again. Trying not to take my headphones with you. There you go, Bubba. Whoop. And he nearly took my headphones with him. All right. Where's my... Oh, God, I put my brush down. There it is. It rolled away. Got it. It's all good. Okay. So he's got a lot of this brown. It has... I can actually probably put it in most places. I'm going to leave the white around. I'll do a very diluted wash on the rest of his body. So that's the same colour. It's transparent sienna. Just very diluted. Take that right down. So it's still quite pale. Take it down his legs. And onto his tail. Right. He's got a lot of white around his tummy, so I won't, around his neck, sorry, so I won't touch that. I'll just do a very, very diluted transparent sienna wash on the rest of his body. Like that. And his wings come out the back. He's got tail feathers come out there as well. Right. There we go. His feet are, well, his feet are furry. He's got furry feet. So I'll pop his furry feet on. I can build that up. We've got some big weather coming in today too, so some big stormy bits. So now I think around the eyes is pretty well dry. So I'm going to make burnt umber, ultramarine blue. So a bit of burnt umber, where's my burnt umber? And that makes a beautiful natural dark grey that I use for my darks, for pupils and things. So you can see that makes a quite a dark, almost black grey, which is exactly what I need for his pupils. I'm going to leave a little tiny glimmer of light for the white of his eyes. Whoops. And take that around onto his pupil. I've got to be so careful. I'm just using the very tip of the brush here to, I can tidy up anything that's a little bit smudgy looking. I've got to round that up a little bit, but that's okay. I can tidy that up in a minute. But that's basically that part of his eye. I'm going to go grab some, I'm going to make some more of that up. Ultramarine blue, burnt umber. Need a little bit more on my palette. Like that. And take that around the outer rim of his eye. So he's actually got a little bit of a frown there. It's not really, it's just his feathers come over his eye and make it look like a frown. Go around that outer rim. Oops. All right. that. Come around here. Alright, and then he's actually got that line there is dark coming up there. And goes around to his eary bits. I can take that down and around now, because why not? That goes around there. And that goes around there. Like that. And then the tips of his ears are dark. So I'll take that feather down there. Alright, I'm going to do his beak. I can add the rest after. I'm going to get his beak on now. So I'll just jump around a little bit. I go from one area to another to get, let one area dry for me. It makes life a bit easier with watercolour. Because I don't want to be working wet into wet on this guy. Not yet anyway, not until later when I'm doing feathers. Alright. Okay, and he's got sort of a darker, I'm going to pop some just patterning in around there. I've got to widen his beak out a little bit and darken the bottom of it. Got to get some stronger blue. I might go a bit of indigo just to help darken that up. And then go a bit of burnt umber just to make it an even darker, dark brown, browny grey. There we go, that's a bit better. Darken up the point of his beak. Like that. He's got a darker bit around there. And a darker bit around there. Right. So pop in a little bit of patination. He's got little feathery patterns, just like dots. I can pop those in. All right. So I'm going to go back in with my transparent sienna now, just slightly stronger, less water, more pigment. And I'm going to just darken up. He's got stronger colour around his eyes, just directly around the edge of the iris, like that. So I'll drop that in. Like that. And I'm also going to make a wash of that next to that. And I'm going to go over that dark that I've just popped on there and just do a little wash of that over the top. I'm going to blend that out a little bit. Like that. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to go onto his belly and I'm going to strengthen up with more transparent sienna. So I'm only using a handful of colours, like 3 colours probably. And I'm going to pop this. I'm going to start to strengthen his darker areas. I've got to be careful to leave the white around his neck. He's got white around the nape of his neck. He's got a little bit of white around his beak. And I'm going to do this in looser strokes so that it creates a feathery, sort of softer feathery effect. Come around his wing. I'm going to work on his belly for the second. Whoops, got a bit too much water in that bit, but that's okay. I'll just add a bit more pigment. It does get darker down there. Come down onto his bottom. Now that leg is quite a solid brown, so I'll come down there, add that feathery sort of back of his leg. Alright. The other leg disappears off behind. You'll have darker stripes as well. The top of him is quite dark, so I'll have to go over that as well. Okay, so you can see I'm leaving little gaps of colour. All right. Now I'm going to come, on his wings, I'm going to come down in bigger strokes. I'm going to be going over this with a darker layer as well, because he's got lots of dark browns on his back of on the back of his wings. But I'm just going to get the basic sort of contour of his feathers. And following the direction of his feathers. And keep it simple. Okay, so now I'm going to make up, actually I might go a bit of neutral tint. Neutral tint is a lovely browny sort of seep tone. I'm going to use a bit of neutral tint, so I've got that there. And while that's still damp, I'm going to add that neutral tint. Just here and there, it'll flow it'll mix in with the other colour, and it'll just make a darker grey, because that's what neutral tint does when it mixes with other things. So a bit darker there, and it just shows you working this. See this, I wasn't working wet in wet. I was working wet on dry to begin with, but now I'm trying to get into the feathery tones or the feathery detail. Dropping wet in wet just lets it go a bit fuzzy, a little bit blurry. Really helps to soften the effects. So it's a little bit drier on his chest, but that's fine. I'm just looking generally where the shapes of the feathers are. And I pop in those details. And I'll build it up darker and darker as I go. Checking the picture, checking the reference the whole time, just to make sure I'm still putting things where they're supposed to be. That's his wing down there. He's got his wing on that side. Oh no, it's not, it's his leg. Like that. Come down here, strengthen up here. Get these stripes down there. Like that. He's darker under his wing there. So I'll pop a few more stripes in there. There we go. Get a bit more sepia on my brush. Pop a few stripes in down here. His stripes on his tail feathers are quite large. Okay, now I've got to drop a line of feather line there. Just blob in a few little patterns there. Right. So I'm happy with that. I've got to pop a little bit around his nape of his neck. Oh, I need to get a bit more sepia. That's too much water in that. I need it to be stronger. So the more water you add, the paler the paint will appear. I've got to make his head a little bit fatter, because his neck comes down there like that. There we go. It's looking better. Looking better. Right. So now, I've got a bit of paint on my hand. I'm just going to clean that up. So I'm going to grab a clean bit of cloth, clean my brush thoroughly, make sure there's nothing on it. Go under here, get that bit of paint that I had on my hand, and just lift it. I am going to be doing a background on this guy. I will do a green background. So now I'm going to make up a stronger grey, and I'm going to use my indigo. I'll go back into that pan, it won't matter, because I've mixed a darker grey there. And I'll go burnt umber, so it's sort of just different blues, slightly different blues. But it'll all mix together just fine, because blues are blue. And that makes a stronger, darker black or grey. And I now go back in and start to define the darker areas on him. Come down around the edge of his wing. He's got very dark feathers down here, like that. And then onto the line of his feathers, like that. Those feathers all come down to one point, like that. And then these ones are much more mottled. So I'll just add little blobs while it's still damp. It'll flow around like that. And I've got to go quite dark under here. Oops, I've got to mix up some more of that, get a bit more indigo. I've only got a tiny little bit of indigo left too. I ordered some, so hopefully it arrives before Christmas. Alright, so now I've got to darken up under the wing here. It is quite dark, coming down and around his wing, like that. I'll leave little bits of the lighter colours showing through. Just following that stripy patination that he's got. Like that. Keep it soft. Come down onto that leg. And a line coming down there. So that leg sort of goes off behind. Really strengthen up that there. He's got a feather coming down there as well. Cool, bananas. Alright. He's got much darker lines under here. And I'm just going to pop them intermittently around the bottom of his tail. Like that. And he's much stronger coloured. I've got to do around his eyes again. So I'm going to go, whoops, I'm going to get a bit of a purpley tone. Very dark. Purpley tone. Pop that around. The iris on his eye. Tidy up his pupil a little bit using the very, very tip of my brush. The very finest point. That's what I love about these brushes. As you can hold a lot of water, but you can also hold a fine tip. Very handy. So silver black velvet, they're awesome. They've become my favourite brush. I usually use Raphael brushes, but yeah, these have fast become my favourite. But I use the Raphael ones for the big washes. They're big mop brushes. They're awesome. They serve a purpose though, that's for sure. Okay, so I'm just going to darken up and add a bit more feather detail. I could actually probably use my rigger for this, just come to think of it. I'm just going to find my rigger. Where did I put my rigger? I used it the other day. There it is. And a rigger is just a very fine brush. So I use that. And I'm going to go back into my dark. Try and get some of that onto the palette like that. And I'm going to start to add detail. Whoops. Of these little feathery bits. Whoops. Get some more moisture on my brush. That'll help. He's got his ear comes down there, and that ear comes down there. All right. I'm going to pop a few feathers down here. Just going to really just strengthen up these darks. It helps with the contrast. Like that. Come down. So I'm just using the rigger to suggest the feathers on his leg there. That leg goes off behind that one. I'm going to really strengthen this dark line here under his wing, if I can. Coming down onto his feathers. Got it, and the dark on his back they're darker. Actually, you know what? I am going to use the bigger brush. It's just easier. The fine ones are really good for the detail around the eyes and stuff, but I've got to just add a bit bigger of a tip. So I'll go back to my size 8. There we go. That just helps me get a bit more of that, a bit more strength into the colour there. I'm going to add a bit of a brown. I might go a bit, actually, you know what? I might go with the Indian red, you know. A bit of Indian red. A little bit of Indian red. Oops. Get that in there. Just to add a bit more. So I've really only used 3 colours. Browny grey, Indian red, which I'll use more up on his chest. Coming down onto the back of his leg, I'll get a bit more Indian red on my brush. Like that. A little bit there. Alright, he's looking pretty cool. Looking pretty cool. Okay, now I'm going to do his feet. So his feet are it's pretty much the same colour as the rest of him, to be honest, but they're a little bit paler. But I'm just going to add darker tones underneath in the shadow areas. He's got 4 toes that I can see. I've got to add a bit more strength down here too on the bottom of his tail and down the middle of his tail, just to help define that into 2 lots of feathers. And then the darker colour on the top, like that. Just put that into blobs, little blibby blobs. Oops, get a bit more there. Like that. Just darken up under there. Alright, pop his little claws on, like that. Alright, because there's another leg over there. Alright, so now, and he's almost the same colour as the log. So I'll pop that on. What I'll do is I'm going to wet the paper, clean my brush, wet the paper, take it right down to the bottom, and I'm going to put the colour on and just let it flow. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go gold ochre. Just going to drop it on like that. Let it flow. Like that. Grab a bit of burnt umber while it's still wet. Let it flow. Because I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on the stump, because the focus is on the bird. I'm just going to suggest a log. Just like that. Come in under his little toeses. Like that. I'm going to add a purple tone for shadow. A dark purpley tone. What I might do is I might add that into that blue. That'll just make that darker. And drop that in the shadow areas. I might even have to make that stronger. Go a really dark purple. So I'm going to go that. Oh, that's not it. That's not the colour I was going for. I put me brush in the wrong blue. That's okay. Oh no, that's indigo. That's what I wanted. It's a different indigo, different brand of indigo. And I'm going to add a little bit of brown to that. I might add a little bit of magenta too. Magenta. There we go. And then drop that in as a shadow colour under his foot. Like that. Take that right around the edge of the stump. Like that. Crack in there. Comes down there a bit. So it's just to suggest the wood, really. It's not really a... Okay, go dark brown. I'll go my burnt umber, pure burnt umber. Pop that in here. And I can start to get those lines, the edges back on that log. Like that. Take it down in sweeping strokes just to suggest the wood pattern. So your mind will trick you into thinking it's a piece of wood. Like that. Take that all the way down the back of that log. I might even go a bit of mahogany. Where's my mahogany? It's a lovely brownie tone that I've got on my palette. I've just got to get it on my... mahogany, that one. It's a red brown. There we go. Bit of mahogany. Pop that in. Just keeps things interesting. Like that. I don't want to do too much fussing because I'll end up going too heavy with the darks. Okay, I'm going to leave that alone for a second. I'm going to clean my brush thoroughly. Clean my brush absolutely thoroughly. Make sure there's no pigment on it. I'm going to clean my palette a little bit. Just clean out a couple of wells because I'm going to go into the green now. Like that. Whoops. So clean my brush and then I'm going to run over the whole background. I'm going to wet it so that when I drop my green in, it'll flow everywhere that the water is. So take that here, there, around the leg, staying away from that log a little bit because it's still wet. All right. Come around there, down this side of the bird, like that. Hello, Dilla. Thank you, and welcome. How's your day? So I'm just adding the background, so I'm just wetting the background thoroughly. And then I'm going to drop my green in, and this is the magic of watercolour. It is absolutely magic stuff. So I'm going to get green on my palette. So this is just olive green, and I'm going to drop it in and let it flow. I'll add a touch of water here and there just to help me, and let it flow around the background. Come in and around. But yeah, I love my wildlife and animal art. So what do you do, Dilla? What's your thing? Okay, coming down here. I'll cut in close while the water's still wet, while the paper's still wet, rather. I can drag the pigment around. I should add a little bit more water to there. Take it around the back of the bird because I've wet all of this paper quite thoroughly. Mind you, it is drying fast because of it's been warm weather here. I haven't got the aircon on today. I had the air conditioner on yesterday. Oops, it's much wetter on this side of the bird. So I'll just take that down and around, cutting in close to the bird. Good, just relaxing, nice. Relaxing is good. Yeah, it's Sunday morning here, so relaxing sounds good. This is my relax. And it's so close to Christmas. It's all going to get busy, busy, busy shortly. But I shan't be going anywhere for Christmas, so it'll be nice. I'll just stay home and paint. That's the plan. Okay, so I'm going to leave here. I'm going to add it, maybe go a little bit while it's still wet. Go a touch more. Just a touch. I can add sort of a few, it suggests trees in the background while it's still a bit damp. Just design and digital art. Nice. Yeah, I just started to play with digital. It's good fun. It's really fun for the wildlife, and it's convenient. It's so convenient. So I'm just going to take these lines down, soften them. They'll dry softer than they are. Blend those out a bit more maybe. I'm not real happy. They look a bit like a bit too hard, so I'll just soften them. So while the paper's still wet, I can move that pigment around a little bit. So I'll just do that gently because I've got a few heavy spots that I don't really want to be that heavy. Like that. All right. Clean my brush thoroughly. And I can start to add details now. Like now I've got the basics of the bird in. I've got to tidy up this log a little bit, so I'm going to go back in with burnt umber. Get some pure burnt umber, not a lot of water, and I'm just going to tidy up without getting my hands in the rest of it. Get some more definition around that edge where the details, so just to make a bit more, because it's looking a bit blurry, a little bit blurry, so I just want to define a fraction, that log. Just enough. That's better. That's a bit better. I'm happier with that, I think. I don't want to do too much, again, like I said, because I'll end up making it just look like a big brown blob. And I don't want a big brown blob. Okay. Whoops. Okay. There we go. I might add a little bit, if I can, a bit of brighter yellow. Add a little bit of variation into that eye. I'll be a bit careful here because I don't want to get it anywhere else on the bird. And I don't want to rest my hand in the paint, just to add a little bit of warmth, well, a bit of strength as well into that. I'm going to add a little bit of this yellow onto the rest of the bird. And it'll dry, like translucent, you won't see a lot of it. It'll dry quite pale, but I'm just going to pop that in, just in a couple of spots. It just adds a little bit of a glow. A little bit of a glow. And this is still watercolour. It's my Sennelier watercolour, but it's quite a strong yellow. Just going to add it into a couple of spots just to warm it up a little bit. He does have a little bit of a glow to him. Pop that around there, onto his belly. There we go. All right. I'm going to go in a strong dark onto the bottom of his toes, onto his toenails. Like that. Getting there, getting there. And I can also add a little bit of gouache. Clean my brush. And add a little bit of gouache. Just for his feather edge. I've left the white of the paper, but I want it to look a little bit have it just a little bit more, a little bit less blobby looking. I want to just add the feathery texture, just to soften those lines a little bit. So just a tiny little bit of white gouache will go a long way. He's got a little bit around his back, a little bit on his wing. Righto. I do have to strengthen up that foot a little bit, the colour in the foot. So I'm going to go back to my rigger. And I'm going to go with a bit of transparent sienna, pure transparent sienna. Oh, that's not transparent sienna. What colour did I just dip into? That's burnt umber. Oh, burnt umber will do. I'll go a bit of burnt umber. I'll take that around the bottom of his toes, just to darken that up a little bit. Like that. There we go. Add a few more feathery details in. Got to define around these wing feathers a little bit. So I'm going a little bit of lamp black just on these darkest areas. Take that down. So everything else up to this point has been burnt umber and cobalt blue for the darks, or burnt umber and indigo for the darkest darks. Just got to strengthen up some of these darks. Just around his tummy. I do like to use my own homemade sort of darks, but this calls for a very dark. And I have been known to use a bit of pen too, go in with a bit of micron. I love microns. Got to say, I do love a micron pen. Just to define a few of these feathers. Like that. Just suggest them. Like that. Ooh, big storm coming in. I just looked out the window and got a fright. There's a big purple cloud looming. All right. But I reckon he is just about done. So I'm going to sign it down this bottom right hand side. It's dry. And I'm going to take the tape off because that's the fun bit. And I am going to call that done. So that's a fun little watercolour sketch. Take those edges off and he looks lovely. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being here, Dilla, and anyone else who's popped in. I appreciate you. So yeah, thank you for watching. I'll be back maybe later today after the storm has passed. Probably tomorrow. So with more wildlife, I might even do an otter tomorrow. I had a suggestion from a friend who on here to do otters, so I may do that. So I will see you then. Have an awesome day. Thank you for popping in.